Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fabbest of the four? This is Steph and Cat Talk Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights. You start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs, and the room is stutters. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place we'd escape. Every one of us, I was kinda late. I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta.
Hey y'all! Welcome, welcome, welcome to a new episode of Steph and Cat Talk Wow on this wonderful Wednesday. Brought to you by the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and In Cat We Trust. Of course, I'm your girl Stephanie Hardy, host and creator of HWP, HWP Extra, and co-host of this fabulous show. And I'm a contributing writer for Daily DDT and color commentator featured on various promotions. But of course, this time I'm not alone. I have my tag team partner right back here with me live and in full effect. Even though you can't see her lovely face, her voice will be present. She is the creator of In Cat We Trust, co-host of this fabulous show. She's also an author. She's also a backstage correspondent for various wrestling promotions in the New York and New Jersey area. And she's a super mom, always doing her thing for her amazing and talented children who might grow up to be superheroes one day. She is Katrina Blake. How are you, Kat?
Thank you for that intro. I am well. I am tired. I'm always tired, I feel. But I am okay. I'm not bad and happy to be back.
Absolutely. Now, before we get started with the show, because it is a special time in Women's History Month, and also just seems to be a special time in general for women in wrestling, I wanted to spend some time talking with Katrina about this beautiful new film that's out right now called Queen of the Ring, which tells the true story of Mildred Burke, who was at the time one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid, women's wrestler back in the day. And the movie tells the story of her life and how she got started into wrestling and basically how she paved the way for so many other women's wrestlers from that era on the way on to the present. But because someone on this amazing show got to go to the premiere and got to talk to people, I wanted Kat to talk about her experience with everything. So, what was it like being on there for media? Like, congratulations for that opportunity, by the way. And number two, what was it like seeing the movie with such a passionate audience full of people who worked on the movie or people who are just fans of women's wrestling in general?
So thank you. Yeah, I didn't think I actually had a conversation with the director, Ash. And so he was the one who was like, you know what, I'm gonna put you on the red carpet list. And I was like, oh crap, thank you so much. Like super excited about that. And so when I got there, I've been to this theater 100 times for me personally in New York City, because I do a lot of early screenings, but it was very different because you can tell they were setting up for the red carpet. They blocked off things and everything. And so one of the first things I noticed, I was actually one of the few women at first. There's a lot of guys, a lot of men. And I was worried about making sure I looked professional. So like I had dress pants on, but I had a cute little top and everything. And I was like, well, these guys are not, I don't know. It just, they seem so like regular. And it threw me off a little bit because I guess I thought like, this is a thing you kind of come dressed to the nines. And so while there were people that I did know who they were in the New York area, that does some of what I do as well. Once we got like the call sheet of like who was coming through, and it was like, oh, okay. And then I felt like I had to kind of scram to make sure I scrambled to get all my thoughts together as far as what I wanted to ask. And so it was really cool talking to like, you know, people like wrestlers that was there. So I got to speak to Electra Lopez and Kyla Sparks, who was there, and they was just kind of there, to be there. And I got to speak to them and just like their thoughts about basically, how important Mildred's story was to be told, I got to interview Emily, who plays Mildred in the movie. Very sweet. I got to interview the director. Um, and I got to talk to Jazz, Medusa, Trish, and Lita. And like one, two of them remembered me, and one was because of my face, like your smile. I remember your smile, and I was like, "Oh, thank you so much," and they were very nice. And I got to just ask them, their thoughts about like this, and I even asked, I believe, both Jazz and Medusa as far as women wrestling from like what else can we do even in 2025 where we have moved forward, but there's still so much work that needs to be done. Just what their thoughts were on that. And, I will post interviews. Like it's been so hectic, guys, and I will be posting, but I did post Emily's. And so got into getting to speak to them and then also getting to speak to some of the actresses. So the woman who played Damaris Lewis, who plays Babs Wingo. One, she's super tall. Um, and so it was kind of like I'm 5'2", and I had to like move my phone up to kind of get her frame to talk to her. But and I mentioned her particularly because people were like talking crap about her and the AEW thing, and I had to keep telling people she's an actress, so she's not going to know the way us wrestling fans will know what kayfabe is. What she learned is what Emily said, the same thing, and some of the other people that said like they had to learn like, oh, it's a lot more intricate backstage of trying to figure out who's going to win and how we're going to play this off. To be honest, that's correct. As fans, we know that, and so I feel like I just want to shout out her because I felt people were being very negative and rude for no reason. And I'm like, not in Women's History Month. We're not going to be going against a black woman because y'all feel a way about what she's saying. She's an actress. She's not a wrestler. She's not media. She's an actress. Did her job off to the next project, and so she said one thing that was learned, and that was what they did learn. All of them did say that if they weren't wrestlers, actual wrestlers. And so she was really cool. It was just really nice to kind of be in that experience. And then I realized just how much media people was there. Like it felt like at one point I was like, oh my God, I caught everybody. And I still didn't catch everybody that was there. I caught a good amount of people, but not even close to who I could have caught because it was going so fast with so many people. But it was a really good experience getting to, kind of watched them. I felt watching the movie personally, like when they were doing, I thought they did a really good job of making the matches feel real, like to tell that story. And again, wrestling fans will understand when you watch a match, you feel emotions. I felt that, even though I knew what the outcomes were, I was sitting here like stressed, and I was like, "Ooh, this is good," because that means I'm feeling whatever you guys are trying to, convey in person, and I'm feeling that as watching it as a fan and a fan only. And so that was cool. I thought Camille was amazing. I thought like and this is no shade to Toni Storm because she's great, but I feel like people didn't acknowledge enough that Camille actually has a bigger role in the movie than probably anybody else. And I feel like I was like, oh, Toni Storm, and like I said, Toni Storm is great. She's great, and this is no shade to her at all. It just was personally, I wish they would have focused more on Camille because Camille literally was like the biggest antagonist of that whole movie. Her character was doing the absolute most. She was pissing me off in the movie. Again, as a fan, I was like, girl, if you don't stop, calm down. Like, this was me in the audience, like talking shit to the screen because I'm like, girl, calm down. You're doing the most. And I felt like she really embodied what this character was as far as that they really had some beef, June, and they had some actual beef. And I thought she embodied that, and then to find out she was one who trained Emily. And Al Snow trained Emily, and she did say that they trained with people from WWE. And I thought that was really cool to kind of learn that information. And again, to talk to Trinity, I definitely was like, girl, you look good at the end of the Q&A. I definitely got to say that to her because I didn't get to interview her. She took no interviews, but they did have them kind of stand towards the front when they did the Q&A, Trish and Lita. And I did say, girl, you look good, girl, because she looked nice for her dressing the neck brace. And I got to talk to Cassandra, who plays Mae Young, and you kind of said I thought she killed it as Mae Young as well, and I did give her that credit. So it was really nice, a great experience. My second red carpet, but the first one as media for the last few months, and I was like, this is very like I didn't know what to expect. I felt like I still wasn't prepared enough. But it was a really great experience. I got to talk to people. I got to meet people. I got to just be in a space for the most part where everybody was very kind and nice to see women's wrestling kind of put on there. I really love the story told, and obviously there's some dramatization and everything, but that's movies and you expect that and things to be slightly embellished. But I thought it was good. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. That's definitely during Women's History Month. Definitely go support it. It's an indie film. That's something they kept stressing. So if you guys can see it, definitely go see it and support all the people. Even some of you known people. You got Camilla, you got Toni Storm, you got Naomi, Trinity for two. So support the girlies. I think Mickey James is in there as well. There's a lot of people who made little cameos, and so support that and support women's wrestling.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that because honestly, you could tell that this movie kind of felt like a labor of love with the girls. Which is, and then what's crazier is the fact that if this movie didn't feel like it was an indie movie to me, simply because I guess we kept seeing the commercials because they kept airing the commercials during wrestling programming, so you really couldn't miss it. But at the same time, and then also because the director is the son of the director of Rocky, so for this movie to look as good as it did, and for it to be as well put together from beginning to end as it was. Like I was just like, this is an indie film. Are you serious? This looks like some major stuff going on. But like it's a fantastic film, and I will definitely recommend you going and seeing it because me and my boyfriend went to see it together this past weekend, and it was absolutely incredible. Um, Everybody did a great job embodying everyone, and the two things that I took from it most was just how the past always informs the present, and how a lot of what we've seen and a lot of the sacrifices that women back then made for their careers helped to build the foundation of what we're seeing now, because it was so nuts how me and my boyfriend were talking about how Mildred Burke wanted to how women's wrestling wasn't legal in certain states, and one of the states being New York, and how she never made it to Madison Square Garden to perform. But then you fast forward to Monday, and you literally have women performing and having this amazing promo and stuff at Monday Night Raw in Madison Square Garden. Like stuff like that, you just cannot ignore when it comes to history in that way. So the idea of this movie coming out was just at this particular time is kismet, and it's a godsend, and I'm just really happy that it exists. So if you have not gone to see it yet, please go see it, find out where it's playing for you. And please just go support it because it's very inspiring, it's very moving. And also, if you've never even watched wrestling before, please go see it because it's still inspiring, it's still very moving. And if you're a brand new fan, you know, be brand new and watch it, and just don't let people get in your way. So congratulations to you, Kat, for having that opportunity. I'm so happy for you always. And happy for everyone who got that opportunity. And yeah, it was just really great. And I wanted us to talk about it and chat about it a little bit on here, since this is a women's wrestling centered show. But of course, we are here to talk about the latest episode of Wow Superheroes, Women of Wrestling. So the name of this episode was Who's the Fabbest of the Four? And of course, this aired on March the 8th and March the 9th. And the episode started with Santana Garrett coming out, riding high over her victory over Paola the Colombian Goat with Abilene Maverick banned from ringside. And she came out and um, asked, basically just calling David McLane out and saying that he's a man of his word, and talking about how she believes a championship match is earned and not just given. So he decided that with her defeating Paola the Colombian Goat, that she would have the next opportunity to face off against the class master for the for the WoW World Championship, and that match is taking place this weekend. So, Katrina, how do you feel about Santana now being the contender for the Classmasters title?
I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Like I feel like Santana was trying. She came back to WoW trying to prove something to herself, but to she's considered a vet in the game. Been wrestling a long time, and sometimes you just gotta be like, I still got it, and I feel like it was a part of that, but also she's been working hard. I feel like she's been in a lot of like great matches, and like sometimes something would happen and she got thrown off a little bit for it, or they put her in like a tag team kind of a match. And while I do, I love tag wrestling for the women that have the teams on WoW, but I also say that sometimes when you tell a person wants the main title, then let them do what they need to do. And I feel like now that she did everything she can do and she's now the number one contender, let her do what she needs to do. Let her have that match. It shouldn't be no weirdness. There's a lot of people in WoW when they become champions don't know how to act. I don't know how to make sure they do the correct thing and not do nonsense when it comes to the belt. There's quite a few, a few of them there. And so she did what she was supposed to do. She became the number one contender. Should be no issue to give her what she's deserved in this regard. I feel like she wasn't wrong. I feel like, again, the top prize, and WoW is the championship that is currently owned by the Classmaster. So sis, do what you got to do, get that title.
Absolutely. And plus, considering she's decorated and has won the title before and the tag titles too, it is refreshing to see someone like her who is, just a, amazing, lawful, good person go after the title in that way. So I'm definitely pumped about it. It's going to be interesting because the Classmaster is so powerful, but yet so technically sound in the ring as well, going up against Santana, who is also pretty technically sound, but a little bit quicker. So I am interested in seeing how that goes and seeing her have that chance and opportunity. But of course, Samantha Smart is never far away from the Classmaster. So we just have to wait and see what happens this weekend in that match. Also, just to jump back into the Queen of the Ring thing, I forgot to mention Birmingham, Alabama has a great presence in it, and I was just really happy about that. But back to WoW. I just had to just shout us out for a minute because that will just never leave my soul. I talk more about it on my show, but either way, it was great. So, earlier also in that night after Santana Garrett got her opportunity, Lana Star was sharing her excitement over Penelope Pink and Holly Swag having their main event for the tag titles. And Lindsey and Laurie, the Carlson twins, still seem to be very salty and upset at the idea that Penelope and Holly have the chance and not them. But Lana just keeps dismissing their feelings about it, and Holly and Penelope, well, Holly seems more excited about it than Penelope does. And when Holly actually wanted to get a high five from Penelope, she just picked her magazine back up and just started reading it because she was just disinterested. And Holly gave herself a self high five. Shout out to DDP. So that was interesting. So we this feeds into our first match, which was Miami Sweet Heat versus Princess Aussie and Tormenta in a rematch of sorts, because of course the last time they faced each other, that was for number one contendership, to be next in line to take on Big Rigs and Bourbon, and Tormenta and Princess Aussie won that match. So, of course, Lana Star does not come out with them because they're beefing right now. And the match started with Lindsey and Princess Aussie. And Princess Aussie and Tormenta seem to have their game on lock when it comes to their chemistry, number one. And number two, with scouting all of Lindsey and Laurie's moves before they could even do them. They were ducking them, they were basically throwing them out of the ring, beating them up, and also evening up the odds when they tried to jump on Princess Aussie at the beginning of the match. Like, this match was pretty amazing in terms of all of the attacks that Princess Aussie and Tormenta were having. It was so bad to the point to where Lindsay and Laurie seemed to just be completely off their game in this match. And there were suicide dives. There were all types of high flying from Aussie and also Tormenta, and they just seemed really locked in. But eventually, I feel like I had never really. It's been a minute since we've seen Lindsay and Laurie fight this hard for a victory, but they fought pretty hard for it. There was even brawling towards the ending component, the ending part of the match. But once Princess Aussie got hit with the Fab jab after she was shoved by Lindsay and Tormenta by accident, Miami Sweet Heat wound up getting the win there. And they finally sort of proved their worth and their ability on their own, I guess. But I have never, it's been such a long time since we had seen the twins fight tooth and nail and also not used underhanded tactics in order to win a tag team match. But they did it. So this is where we're at. So, Katrina, how do you feel about this rematch between the Carlson twins and Princess Aussie and Tormenta? And how do you think this positions them as they're at a crossroads with the Fab Four?
Well, I did say a few weeks ago that I did feel Lana kind of forgot about all of them. Now, while I will still stand on that, I do think that Miami Sweet Heat should not be in the tag team picture again as far as the title anytime soon. Like, you can be in the tag team picture without having necessarily have the belts. And I feel like that's what they're trying to get back to. This is why they were feeling away that Penelope and Holly got that opportunity. With that being said, I definitely do think that Lana might be losing her squad. You know, like you're not too concerned about Penelope, and Penelope don't like Holly. And something that was mentioned later on in the show was about referencing like how could you trust Holly, which she did, what she did to her mother, and that's facts. You know, like if you can put your own mom under the bus, I feel like you would put anybody under the bus. That's your mom. And I feel like her just you wanting to live a high life or living a better life, it's not like you're necessarily your mom's fault if things is a bit harder. You know, everybody's not born rich or stuff happens. And so, like, the fact that she was able to leave your mom so quickly and no level of remorse in anything, I feel like Lana's not taking that into consideration, that you got to be, like, mindful of, like, maybe she BSing. I feel like Lana doesn't seem concerned about the original people. And now this is with regards to Miami Sweet Heat and to Penelope. Like the fact that Penelope don't even want to be involved with Holly and you just seem like ignoring it. And sometimes, like, depending on what the situation is, you can ignore it because it's not a big deal. But in this situation, it seems like you may be losing the squad. I think you should probably be more aware of that. So I did like that one Princess Aussie and Tormenta definitely put the fight into that matchup, but I also did appreciate that Miami Sweet Heat did fight them without engaging in shenanigans. Like they were able to be like, you know, we won this fair and square. Nobody interjected, nobody was involved, and we actually did this. And so I can give kudos where kudos is deserved. And so they kudos for that. But I do think it's like because you have somebody like Princess Aussie and Tormentor who can, you know, wrestle solo and together as well, like you got to bring your A game. I think they did, and so I'll give them that for the win. But I do think that they got somebody got to have conversation somewhere. But it's definitely feel like at some point it's going to come to a head.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna come to a head because it's really insane because when we first started covering WoW and then we saw the formation of the Fab Four in its first iteration, it felt like Lana was equally focused on like Penelope as a single star and Miami Sweet Heat as tag team champions, and then they had their other enforcer, and it just who in Vicky Lynn McCoy, and it seemed like they had a clearer vision than what's going on right now, and it's just really insane to look at them. It's almost like you're looking at two different factions, and the idea that we're watching Lana Star get shiny toy syndrome. It's just really nuts because Holly Swag, yeah, I understand that she's talented and I understand that she has also adopted the idea of cheating to win with with that sock of rocks and everything. And she likes to live the fab life or whatever. My thing is that's not enough to prove loyalty. And at the core of the Fab Four, it seemed like there was loyalty there, and it just seems like all of that is just being lost for what exactly? Like I don't know, but yeah, I feel like eventually it is going to have to come to a head with the Carlsons because they were there from the jump. Like you said, like they were the OG one of like two of the OG members of the Fab Four. Like they changed their entire personas from what we knew them as these amazing twin sisters who were a great tag team who had pride in being from Miami and stuff to being a part of your clique. And now you're just turning your back on them for what? Like it's not fair. Like, it's really not fair for them to feel like the B team when they were your A team for so long. Just because they lost a couple of times, like, there's no loyalty in that either. So, yeah, it's definitely going to have to come to a head, and we'll definitely see what happens there. But I am happy that at least the Carlsons were able to get that win on their own. As excited as I am to possibly see Princess Aussie and Tormenta be in the tag team title picture, I'm at least happy that Miami Sweet Heat at least got a win on their own, to prove that they're still a premier tag team in WoW. So that was cool. So we'll wait and see about that. And it was a good match regardless. So yeah, Miami Sweet Heat won that one. So we move on to match number two, which was a singles match between Gigi Gianni coming out there with BK Rhythm as the Brat Pack versus Chantilly Chella. Now, this was kind of like a continuation from last week where we saw BK Rhythm um go up against, I believe, I can't remember if it was Roxxy Fierce or someone else, but either way, they both had matches one after the other, and this was Gigi going up against Chantilly. And Gigi had a new theme song and it sounded very voguish and I really liked it and it definitely fits her fashionista persona and here's a shot of her face card which I always appreciate because she is a beautiful girl. Um and I really did enjoy her theme song. But before we even get to the match itself, we get to Katrina's least favorite part of WoW, which is BK's bars. She actually had a rap verse curated especially for Gigi Gianni in this moment for her bestie. She said, Gigi Gianni's fashion is high class, and you look like you found your fit out of the trash. And we know you can dance, but you're a step behind. She's red carpet ready, but your face card declined. And I'm just looking like, why would you say that about Chantilly Chella? She's literally gorgeous. Stop it. Literally stop it. Like, I understand Gigi's pretty, but you're not about to drag Chantilly like she's not pretty either. And her gear is fantastic. But moving on, to get into the match, Gigi, of course, was her regular vicious self. But of course, Chantilly Chella was holding it down for the rest of the match. They were trading holds on the mat, and then there was a 2 count. Chantilly Chella actually had a headlock takeover, but then Gigi was able to reverse a number of the holds that Chantilly Chella was trying to lock on her. And in this picture right here, there's an impressive Meteora and there was also another spot where Gigi Gianni actually hit double knees to Chantilly Chella while propositioning her in the middle rope. And I low key felt like those two spots were it was definitely giving Mercedes Monet and CEO vibes. And I was just like, I'm just a nerd for women's wrestling and I'm a nerd for the GOAT. So the idea that both of those spots happened, it was just really amazing for me, even though I know that those moves aren't exclusively hers, but it's just really good to see. But of course, Gigi was giving a rear chin lock to Chantilly Chella. Chella kept trying to fight back. There was one point where Gigi even hit an impressive fireman's carry and a sidewalk slam, to which Chantilly actually, kicked out of. And I was like, whoa, how did you kick out of that? It was crazy. And then Chantilly found an opening and hit a hurricanrana from the top rope and tried really hard to get the upper hand. But in the end, BK Rhythm interfered by knocking Chantilly off of the middle rope as she was getting ready for a springboard. And then Gigi wrenched the arm of Chantilly Chella and then pinned her for the 1, 2, 3 and got the win. So sad face. Gigi won. It was a really amazing matchup, but of course, it always pays to have somebody out there with you. And BK was that person, and Gigi Gianni won the match. So, Katrina, how did you feel about the match, and also how did you feel about BK's bars for her bestie?
Now you know how I feel about BK's bars because it's always some nonsense. Like every time I'm thinking like she gonna, I'm like, okay, maybe I will be upset about the bars, and then she says something. I'm like, you know what? And this is why. This is one of my least favorite things happening on WoW. We don't need bars. Like focus on other things if this is what we do and which bars. With that being said, I did really enjoy the match, and I do think that both girls, both women, uh did what they had to do, like in regards to they both were really like giving their all in the match. I thought like even with which was unfortunate that BK interfered. It would have been nice, and I guess because they are heels and it makes sense that sometimes you gotta do the nonsense that you do. But it would have been nice to just have Gigi win that if she was gonna win it, like win it without interference. I felt like Gigi is not like she can't wrestle. Gigi can. And she does it always, like even when she's doing certain facial expressions when she's like in a lock or something. She's always, as the saying goes, mobbing the camera. Son old saying it like that. Uh, but that's the
Yes.
saying, right? Like, always looking on point in the camera. I feel like every time, no matter what she's doing, she always looked nice doing it. And so I feel like it would have been really extra, you know, if she would have got that win without interference from BK. I felt like, you was already looking fabulous while you was doing what you was doing. You didn't need interference. But with that being said, outside of the interference, I did enjoy the match. I thought it was very well done, and I definitely think Chantilly was pulling it out, in her moments. I think she really was. Um, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good match.
Yes, Gigi is absolutely talented. Like she is someone who I would love, to get in title contention for the world championship or another championship if they ever decide to make another like mid-card one. Like she is fantastic. Like just seeing her and the way that she wrestles and gets down, like she just gets it. She just gets it. Like even from her facial expressions to all the moves she uses with the viciousness and she executes them, Gigi really does get it. And I feel like more of a like there should be more of a big deal made about her at this point. But yeah, like she really like I agree with you. She didn't need BK to really like interfere for her because she was locked in the entire time. And of course Chantilly was locked in with her. So this was a very like high caliber match from these two. It was very very good. I hate seeing Chantilly lose, but in the end, the match was great and Gigi Gianni was really on her A game here. So I definitely agree with you that she doesn't need anybody to cheat for her. And yeah, BK, when she raps and that's just kind of the thing. So yeah, diss tracks, what are you gonna do? So, as we move forward with the rest of the show, we did get a backstage peek into the Wild Tag Team Champions Big Rigs and Bourbon, and we saw Big Rig Betty having a little bit of apprehension on putting her hands on Holly Swag because she hadn't really like had to like touch her since Holly Swag, abandoned her for the Fab Four. But Jesse Jones told her, look, if you had probably hit her, earlier in life, then we probably wouldn't have been in this situation. But you just got to stay locked in so we can keep these titles and bring the titles home. And that's what they discussed backstage. So, Katrina, um, how exactly did you feel like knowing that Big Rig Betty was having these apprehensions about getting in the match and being locked in with Holly Swag?
Well, I get it. She's a mom. You don't want to, unless you're like a horrible mom, or you are how I want to say sometimes, and not to bring him up, but like how sometimes just a man would do something. I'm like, my guy, like, like your dad, like you better, like that kind of like some of the stuff he had Stephanie involved. I'm like or Shane involved in it. I'm like, and while I knew it was supposed to be like entertaining, sometimes I'm like, you, my guy, you are a parent. I feel like there's has to be a level of some kind of common sense when it comes to your kids. So I feel like in the regard that she's a mom, you don't want to like put your kid in it. Like you want to have your titles, but you don't want to be in a situation where you might hurt your kid, and that I can understand. And I'm sure she was hurt with Holly dipping, but at the end of the day, no matter what your child do, you love your kid, and so I understood that reference. With that being said, and also one of those things is like, listen, if I gotta prove a point and teach you, because sometimes parents gotta teach kids necessarily in a bad way, but sometimes you just gotta let kids know that listen, there's a reason why I'm mom, or there's a reason why I know I'm saying what I know, or just it's whatever the case may be. And I feel like if you gotta teach her a lesson, like you're not winning these titles, then do what you gotta do, sis. Like you can feel bad after and love from afar till she ready to get her stuff together. But this is a title. And Holly made her choice when she left. Could have been y'all. You was already champions before, like you made that choice. So I can understand from a mom perspective, like, oh, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you got to fight your kid. But also, sometimes you got to let the kids know.
Yeah. Definitely. It's almost like where my mom was, how so many people's moms would say, "Look, I'm not one of your little friends. I'm your mother, and you really have to put your foot down and stuff." So that's what Big Rig Betty, had to do. She had to really like lock in and keep the titles because, in the end, she might really love her child, but at the end of the day, you need to beat your child up like she's any other woman or any other opponent. So we will definitely get to that in a little bit. So we move into match number 3, which involved not Foxy, Roxy, Lord, Fierce, going up against Genesis, who is of course chomping at the bit to get more opportunity in the WoW side of things, to get, her chance at WoW Glory and the WoW World title. Um Something that I really loved about Roxy's entrance here was the fact that you had audience members saying "ooh ooh" to her theme song, "ooh ooh," and I was like, yeah, y'all better do that. I love crowd participation. Then another thing that was funny on commentary was the fact that David McLane finally learned what DMV meant because he apparently did not know what it stood for. And Nigel Zane, said that he actually had to ask Roxy, what DMV meant. And that is, of course, if you're from the DC area, then that's basically the interchange between Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So that's what that is. And I've heard it said before. So the idea that, they were addressing that on camera was just really interesting. So, yeah, shout out to acronyms. We love them. So this match started with a really strong lockup from these two. I felt like a sense of electricity when I saw these two women lock up with each other. I was like, "Ooh, okay. Yes, this is how we're starting." Um, Genesis started off, with an X chop to the throat of Roxy, but of course, and then she tried to lock in a full Nelson, but then Roxy broke it up. I think the story of this match here was just sort of Genesis thinking that she could just out wrestle and outmaneuver Roxy, and Roxy proving that, yeah, I've been in the lab and I'm this powerful woman and you're not just going to run through me either. But also at the same time, there was the story of Genesis being incredibly crafty, in the sense that she proceeded to target Roxy's legs and knees to try to break her down. And that was tough to watch because y'all know over the past couple of weeks I've been talking about how Roxy is one of my favorites to watch as the season has progressed. But to see her get attacked in this way, with her knees and her legs getting slammed into the apron and also put in submissions and such, it was just tough to look at. But Roxy was fighting out of it, finding ways to, fight through the pain, and take advantage of different moments where Genesis got too big for her britches and got caught up in the ropes and tangled in and of herself. But Genesis was actually able to take advantage and chop Roxy's shoulders and then kicked her in the knee and the face in order to knock her out for the 1, 2, 3, and Genesis won the match. Fair and square this time. Did not cheat. So did not grab any tights or any ropes or whatever. She won the match fair and square. So Genesis is out here getting the wins that matter in order to prove herself worthy of the top opportunity. So this is where we're at. So, Katrina, how did you feel about the performance of Genesis and Roxy in this match? And do you think that Genesis would make a great WoW World Champion?
I thought it was a good match. I do like Roxy, and something they did say on commentary a few times was that Roxy, was considered a rookie, obviously, because she just started wrestling, and how much she has, like, how good she is for being a rookie, how she basically embraced it. They actually mentioned both her and Foxy as far as them being, gifted in other areas where athleticism is necessary, but how Roxy really thrived in this new role as a wrestler, and I agree. And I think that, she definitely was putting her effort into trying to beat Genesis. With that being said, I did appreciate Genesis winning without nonsense. Like, I think she's a phenomenal wrestler. And, while she has definitely engaged in some things that I'm like, girl, why? Like, why is this the reason? Why you gotta do all this? You don't need to do this. You can wrestle. She came out doing, her nunchucks like she knows she needs to do. And so I appreciated that in this regard, she really won with no problem. And I know she feels like, it was said also on commentary that she doesn't want to do the materials. And I understand. Like, in the situation with her in the trios, she didn't always get necessarily the right, like she had people that worked. And like I said, I do think when, Ice Cold was part of the group that she wound up thriving with, Excel. I thought she did. With that being said, it was like, well, they didn't really want to listen to her. It was a kind of like, who's the leader, who's in charge. And I can understand, especially after what happened with the trios titles, that you guys worked hard and made it for what happened to happen, what happened with top tier to change all of that. I can truly understand why she's like, I am not doing trios again. Get it? I would be the same. I would wash my hands, clap it up. This is it. So I understand her logic of wanting to just, I can show you guys what I can do on my own. She's been saying that for months, that, she doesn't need anybody. So this is the perfect way to show that you can also make it to the title shot and possibly win it. I think this is a good start of doing it the correct way and not engaging in nonsense and shenanigans. But I thought it was a really good match. I thought Roxy did her thing, but I did like that Genesis got the win off with no nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciated that, too. And I'm just glad that now Genesis is setting herself up, in a more serious manner when it comes to winning matches like that. So I was definitely, impressed in that regard. And she's always been a good wrestler. And it's so funny you were talking about her refusal to participate in trios matches because of her time with Exile. It almost makes me wish Exile had stayed together long enough to contend with um top tier for those trios titles when they actually existed, because could you even imagine the battles they would have back and forth for those trios titles? It would have been amazing. But, stuff happens. But either way, Genesis on her solo tour is definitely kicking butt. And I hate that it came at the expense of Roxy, who is, a rookie, but I feel like for someone who did just start wrestling, she has so much promise, and there's just so much more that she has, in store. And I just can't wait to see what more she has to give. And the fact that she just kept fighting through the attacks that Genesis was giving to her legs over and over again, like that just says a lot about her. So I can't wait to see what's in store for her. I feel like I say that every week, but I can't wait to see what's in store for Roxy, in her future. But Genesis got the upper hand and won this match. So that's where we're at. So we're moving into our main event, Kat. The tag team match for the Wild Tag Team titles between Big Rigs and Bourbon, Jesse Jones and Big Rig Betty going up against Holly Swag and Penelope Pink, of course, with the fabulous Lana Star out there. So, Kat, take it away. Let us know what happened in this fantastic main event.
So they did mention coming in that in particular with the Fab Four that Penelope and Holly are not on the same page. When the match started, it did start off originally. Basically, Penelope kind of pushed Holly into the ring, and it was Holly and Jesse. But then Holly quickly rolled out and basically tagged Penelope back in, so Penelope would wind up taking over the match. I do think Penelope, kind of came in well, but Jesse was really showing her why she's tag team champion. I thought, she did really well in that regard in the very beginning, kind of just showing like, well, you're not going to get this over on me, um she had Penelope in like this hold where I don't know what it's called, but she had her in this hold, and to the point where I thought at one point it looked like, ooh, Penelope, you look like you're struggling a little bit. It was a little bit
Hmm.
concerning. And then Penelope will basically roll off to the corner where she's basically now in the corner of Big Red Belly. And so Holly's now back on the turnbuckle and the ropes and everything. Like she didn't just, tag in Penelope. So Penelope basically took a good chunk of the brunt in the first half of the offense. And then Big Red Betty would be tagged in and Holly would be tagged in. And you see Big Red Betty kind of like telling her to come here. Like she's doing that come hither. I guess again, that's sometimes you gotta let your kids know what's going on. You gotta let your kids know this is what things are. And so you see Penelope looks a bit annoyed outside the ring, and like Lana kind of rubbed her back. I guess she was upset about how everything played out. But Holly was, to me, wrestling very scared. Like she kept kind of going in and kind of moving herself out of the ring, and kind of like, I felt like to an extent teasing Big Rig Betty, even though, Big Rig Betty was ready to, I guess, teach her a lesson. And so I guess it didn't work out the way, so she would tag Jessie back in, and Jessie wasted no time beating up Holly. I was like, okay. And then Big Rig Betty would basically, they did like her and Jessie did this really awesome tag move. And then Big Rig Betty will put Holly over her lap and she would spank her. Like doing like a spanking motion to Holly during this, I guess again proving that mom is in charge here. And then Holly didn't particularly like that, and so she started trying to beat up Big Rig Belly. Like she seemed really upset about that. Um, and then like at this point now, I feel like Holly was actually wrestling now because she had her mom in there, and she seemed upset that Big Rig Betty did what she did. But I thought the match was really well done. At one point, Miami Sweet Heat would come out during this matchup, even after I felt like, Holly was doing pretty well considering, and then Penelope did get back in. I did feel like I was a little surprised that after everything that happened in the beginning of the show, that this would kind of be this way. And so the match looked like, Big Rig Betty and Jessie kind of had this in the bag, but then Miami Sweet Heat would kind of come out and basically interfere in this. And because they interfered, obviously Big Big Belly and Jessie would still hold the titles, but they would basically interfere and beat them up. And Princess Aussie and Tormenta would have to come out and kind of help them out in this regard because it got a little bit hectic, a little bit crazy, and referees had to come out. It was a whole big brawl after a while, where the referees kind of had to come out and kind of stop what was happening in this. And so that clip is literally like, even though the match was like done, Holly was still beating up Jessie. And it was a whole big brawl at the end of this. And that's basically how the episode ended with the brawl. But it was a good main event considering. I was actually very, again, surprised that Miami Sweet came out because of what happened in the beginning. It was like you guys did well by not doing nonsense in the first match, and then you come out and do some nonsense in the last match with the other two. I don't know if they just didn't believe that they can do it, or they was just really upset that Penelope and Holly got the title, so they would have rather come out and do this and interfere, knowing that because of that, Holly and Penelope would not win. And I feel like a part of it was that, like, it was done on purpose. But that's just me. But
No,
yes,
I feel that way too. Like I not to interrupt you or cut you off, but I feel like the Carlsons came out there to interrupt it because they really felt like Penelope and Holly didn't deserve that opportunity. Because they made it, it's like it's not like they made it a secret that they didn't like the fact that Lana didn't choose them. Like, so I really feel like they came out there to ruin that opportunity for Penelope and Holly. But I am very surprised to know that Ozzy and Tormenta came out there as well to sort of fight with them. So there's a part of me that's wondering how is this going to be solved when you have Penelope and Holly wanting to go for it, but then you also have um Ozzy and Tormenta who won the opportunity to go for it the next time, but then you have Lindsey and Laurie trying to go for it as well. Like it's a lot. Like that sounds like a crazy way to end an episode, but a crazy cliffhanger at the same time. But in the end, I'm happy that Jessie and Betty are at least still tag team champions because it Loki would have made me sad if Penelope and Holly won those titles off of them, and then they would low key be holding them in front of Lindsay and Laurie. That would have been nuts and pretty sad on the part of the twins. But I feel like maybe that would have been a really messy conflict, but a messier conflict. But yeah, what a way to end an episode.
I agree. It definitely was. I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today. But I'm definitely interested to see how this plays out in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And of course, since we've reached the end of talking about this episode, we've reached the end of our time together. So, all of you guys who are watching us live, thank you so, so much for watching us on all of our platforms. And also for those who are going to watch this later, thank you for supporting the show and for sharing any clips that you might see on any form of social media that we have. Thank you for just being supportive of women's wrestling and this show in general. Um, there's a lot that we still have to rise up towards in terms of equality in wrestling, but there is still so much that we do have to celebrate, and this show is one of them. So if you have not given WoW Superheroes a chance, please do. And go on wowe.com and find out where it airs for you via your zip code or whatever city you're in. Or you can watch it on their YouTube channel, which is Wow Superheroes. Subscribe to them. And they drop all of the matches and also the episodes the week after the episode airs. And you can also watch it on the 24-hour Wow channel. Um, that's on Pluto TV and also other smart televisions. So, yeah. We will be back next week to talk about the show. And of course, Katrina, thank you so much for coming back to be my tag team partner because even though I know I can hold down the fort, I don't like doing this show, particularly without you. So thank you here again for being my partner in this show and in all things WoW. And just tell everybody where they can find and follow you and what you've got going on.
You guys can find and follow me on In Cat We Trust, Ease through in every place but Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. As far as what I got going on, I should be doing a few shows soon. Like I said, it's been extremely hectic and busy on my end. Like the mom stuff has been a bit insane. So I have been a bit delayed, but I do have some new videos out on my channel. I do have my little sarcastic podcast with my friend Haven on my YouTube, so check that out. We definitely talk a lot of crap, but it's in good jest as Reddit. It's Reddit, guys. And I will be posting the rest of the interviews from Queen of the Ring. Like I said, it's just kind of going through them and editing them. There's quite a few I have to post. So definitely check out my YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram for that. And just kind of be on the lookout for new stuff.
Awesome sauce. And please know that you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. You can also follow my show, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. I do have a new episode out that came out this past Monday where I talked about Queen of the Ring in more detail. There aren't any spoilers, but either way, I did talk about how I felt about certain things with the movie, as well as what I liked in wrestling in the past week. And I'll probably be doing a new episode this Friday, if not Saturday as well, because there is so much to talk about as we are on the road to so many things, including WrestleMania. So be on the lookout for that, and also read all of my articles on Daily DDT. And just be on the lookout for any new things that I might be writing. And just continue to follow me and listen to everything. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is The Hardy Wrestling Podcast with the HWP in the middle of the ring with the 5 years banner on the bottom of it because it is the 5 year anniversary of the show. And just continue to support your girl because we are almost to 500 subscribers. So subscribe, get those numbers up, share those clips, and just continue to support your girl as she is out here in these wrestling streets. So, of course, this has been Steph and Cat Talk Wild brought to you by the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and In Cat We Trust. And until next time, bye, y'all.
Yes.